The Devil's Touch, Chapter 1. The cock crew. Annie woke in the night to an unfamiliar metal squealing as the weather vane on the barn swung round to the north, and to the sound of banging. Patrick would have known to go and close the barn doors, but she did not think. Besides, the darkness was too thick. There were so many things he used to do of which she was simply unaware. They had made a good pair in the early days, even through the later sourness. But now, even after all this time, she was often as a novice again, and she cursed herself for the things that she did not do until it was too late. Combe Farm was nestled in the rounded belly of the valley end, and usually benefited from the shelter of the rolling hills that cradled it. The fields on the northerly side bathed in generous sunlight, and the wooded slopes opposite softened the breath of the warmer breezes from the south. But from time to time, even this late in the spring, the wind could swing around and sharpen its tongue. It came whipping down from the high tops, smelled of frost and peak and smoke and damp. It seeped through cracks in the door, rattled the shutters against the windows, it wrapped itself around the back of the house, found the year's gathering detritus, old sacks, leaves, straw, and scattered it across the yard. Last night, it had brought more snow. Annie felt accused. Everything the wind said was judgment. The songs it sang were bitter and grating. It found her flesh between her clothes and dragged its cruel claws across her skin. On days like these, there was no getting warm. The smoke backed down the chimney and smutted the clothes on the dryer in front of the hearth. She cursed the wind. Every moment she had to venture outside. She cursed Patrick too for leaving her to this bitter solitude. She stayed in as long as she dared, putting off the tedious tasks she knew she must perform. She went to the back bedroom and opened the blanket box, cursed the moths that had feasted on the blankets and garments within. At last she found it, Patrick's old Guernsey. She pulled it over her head, pushed her arms down through the sleeves, and pulled it down across her breasts and stomach. She felt the wool coarse beneath her palms, stiff with disuse. She breathed in the scent of the old garment, found the comforting memory of the kind man he had once been. When had that changed? Then she found the thick loose knit shawl her mother had worn and wrapped her shoulders against the oncoming grief of the wind. "Put on the coat, woman," muttered the voice in her head. "I'll be fine," she said aloud, but her own voice startled her. She felt the skin shift on her back, as if someone had crept behind her. "Don't be daft," she told herself. As she came down the stairs, young Jed looked up at her from his sleeping place by the hearth. He was not young any more, but the name had stayed even as his bones had stiffened. He picked himself up from the rug before the hearth and followed her outside. She battled across the snowy yard and lifted the flaps of the hen house. The 5 were hunkered on the lowest perch, 4 hens and the cockerel. Their heads were pulled down into their shoulders of the wings, their feathers ruffled such that she could see the purple-grey roots of their plumage. She tipped grain into the feeders and cracked the ice in the water trough, but the birds remained in their maudlin meditations, sullenly blinking at her for disturbing them. She could feel their annoyance. Should she leave the flaps open? They showed no inclination to venture out into the gritty grey daylight. "You've got drink, you've got grub, you'll survive a day," she said. It was only after she had lowered the flaps again that she heard the beating of wings come from inside. "Ah, you buggers," she said. "Bugger the lot of you. You You'll stay in there now and like it." The snow had started to fall again, riding the wind. It had plastered itself across her back much more thickly than she had realised as she tended to the hens. Young Jed had gone back to the cottage door and stood looking for her to come back and let him in again. She went back, lifted the latch, and watched him as he trotted in and lay back in his spot by the hearth. "I'll come and kindle it presently," she said. She turned her head as if to challenge the beast wind, but was forced to squint her eyes against the icy blasts. Snow crystals stung her cheeks. Head down and pulling the shawl tighter around her, she set off across the yard to the barn. The barn door had been flung open by the wind. She should have come here straight away, as soon as she had caught the sound of the weathercock grinding its unfamiliar wail. The barn had shuddered and swallowed gust after gust of the shouting wind. Inside, during the night, the milker had given birth. Far too soon. She'd heard the animal lowing during the night, a dark, guttural moan. Patrick would have known the signs, and in her heart she knew them too. She would have left her bed and followed him to the barn, lantern in hand, to see to the animal. She knew how to follow him, even while he hated her. She knew how to be at his side. She knew what he would need before he knew himself. But Patrick was gone, and the knowing was gone. The sounds and signs that were language to him, cues and clues to what he was required to do, now went uninterpreted by her. She was alone, and the wind sharpened her aloneness. It tattered the memories of their life together, ripped who she had been from the landscape. She was left with broken words, fragments of togetherness that had lost their meaning many years ago, and now just hung like frosted flags, shredding under the bitter breath of the north wind.